It's like Jedi mind tricks that crowd managers and health and safety do.
Oh, absolutely. I think, to coin a phrase, health and safety is everybody's job. It was the first time that I found an avenue to release all my thoughts, and we closed Glastonbury one year. I played on the Pyramid stage.
Nothing compares to Pat.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to FairPlay, the Fair's new show exploring journeys through the magical medium of music.
Guests are asked to choose 5 songs which define their journey through life in the industry. Whether it be a song from their first concert, the first act they ever booked, a guilty pleasure, and so many more.
I'm Nicky D.
And I'm Will.
For those who don't know, the Fair are an independent festival production company based in London but producing events across the UK, in Europe, the US, the Metaverse and beyond.
We've created this show as we are keen to amplify a range of voices from across the industry. Whether it be from DJs to promoters, production staff to agents, we've been speaking to people from all across the festival sites.
We've attached a track list in the description below. Take a look and leave a comment. Welcome to FairPlay. This is the Fair's new podcast where we'll be talking to people from across the festival site. Today we have Pat Plummer, who is a health and safety advisor. He runs his own security company, PRP Security. You've had other jobs which we'll talk about, but most importantly, you're a friend to the Fair and a friend to myself, so I'm chuffed to have you here. Welcome,
Good to be
Pat.
here, thank you.
What's going on? Talk to me about your day.
I've been to Lichfield Cathedral yesterday to have a look at, they do concerts in the cathedral, and they've got Fleetwood Mac playing in Lichfield Cathedral, so that should be quite interesting.
Amazing. I would love to see what that looks like.
Well, it's just, alternative use of space with different sounds, so yeah.
I've noticed this is like such a trend at the minute. People wanting to like throw parties, electronic music parties, or even gigs just in spaces which aren't typically used.
Yeah.
What do you think's brought that on?
I think the truth is we have so many spaces in and around the world actually that's underutilised. Maybe also underutilised for its intended purpose. And I think it's that juxtaposition. We're going to be listening to something somewhere that we shouldn't be, or we're listening to something somewhere where we're not normally. I mean, I think playing gigs in pubs has been happening probably from somebody had a lute and a penny whistle. So, let's mix it up.
Yeah, there's a bit of naughtiness to it. I love this.
And I think I like the fact that different genres have been played in different areas. There's a concert hall in Belgium, and they had drum and bass and trip-hop DJs playing in a floating concert hall. It was built that floated on water. It was just acoustically superior, but you were never going to be hearing that music in there. And it's just great.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so Pat, as we touched on, you run your own security company.
Yeah.
You've been working in the industry for 30 years.
Yeah.
Where did it all begin? Like, what happened?
When people say I tripped over, fell, and found myself in there, that's very much what happened. I was working in a prison, and I started working with a company called Lettuce, which I don't even know if they still exist, but we were providing sort of like a security element to them on gigs. And we were working at Milton Keynes Bowl, and we were providing a security element to them because we were big burly prison officers, and it was cash days. Okay. So there was a lot of cash, so we were just looking after the cash and looking after the beer tents and the stock and just doing that. So that's one of the first things I ever did, really working on events as such. And then when I was also in London, I worked at Wembley Arena. So providing security and seeing in excess, I think it was about 70 bands over that period of time.
With that, like you work on the operational side of the industry, which is management of people, looking at how things work rather than, I guess, what it is that's working.
Yeah.
So can you see any transferable skills from when you were working at the prison maybe to security or to like crowd management, health and safety parts of the industry now?
I think, to coin a phrase, health and safety is everybody's job. Because of that, you're constantly thinking of how do you keep people safe in an environment where they're not always with their surroundings. So if you turn up at a concert, you're being shepherded and herded into areas. You rely on the staff, you rely on the stewards, you rely on the security to ensure that people get to where they need to be safely, enjoy the show and go home.
It's like Jedi mind tricks that crowd managers and health and safety do.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to go on to the next, go on to the first song, sorry.
Okay.
This track is 1 in 10,
Yeah.
UB40. Do you want to talk a little bit about the song and where you were when you heard it?
So they played at the Hare and Hounds in Birmingham, which funnily enough, a pal of ours runs that pub now, and there's a blue plaque out there. But I was only a boy. I wasn't even old enough to be there, really. But my sister was working in Birmingham as a nurse, and she said, "Oh, I've got some tickets to go and see this new band," and they hadn't really had it off yet. And so, in my best Fred Perry t-shirt and Wrangler jeans with me Puma GV Last trainers, I was there.
Love this. The song itself, I was doing a bit of research about it, and it's actually about the percentage of unemployment.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting that this is like the first concert you went to and it's politically charged, which is very you in my eyes. But
Small pig.
At the time, were you like aware of what it was about, or?
In hindsight, I got it, but I was living it at that time. You know, we lived in the Midlands. Everybody's dad was a factory worker or a foundry worker. We were losing our jobs. They were losing their jobs. We were going from the haves to the have-nothings. And I suppose at the time, it was just great music. But when you look back at it, it was what was really happening around us. Without us happening, it was so slow that you didn't recognise the fact that we were actually all heading towards total despair.
Yeah. And UB40 are from the Midlands?
Yeah, they're from
right?
Birmingham band.
Yeah.
Well, UB40 was the card that you used to have to take to the unemployment agency to sign on a weekly. You had a UB41 and a UB42.
Right.
And then their second album was Signing Off, which means that because they all got jobs as in a band, they signed off. So you got a signing off card, which is...
Yeah, okay, wicked. Should we listen to the track?
Yeah.
So that was 1 in 10 by UB40, a track from your first concert.
Yeah.
The song talks about some of the hardships in the Midlands in the early 80s, right?
Yeah.
And I was just saying to you then off the mic, like, I find it interesting how the music, the instruments, the energy of the song, it makes me feel positive even though the lyrics are negative. So we're going to touch back on the prison officer life.
Okay.
Because I actually didn't know this about, like, I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah.
You touched on how there was like a bit of an overlap with like providing security because you worked in the prison. What was it actually like working in the prison?
There's two aspects of it. One is it's a bit like being at school, but you're the teacher, and it's like Porridge,
Right.
the comedy program.
Okay.
Because it's a surreal life. I can't think of another out of prison comparison to say it's like this, because there isn't one.
It's like the polar opposite of a festival space, which I find mind-boggling.
It is, but it's a village.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that is where, as you know, when we're living on site and building the festival space, you're in a surreal environment. You're doing things that you wouldn't normally do with people that you probably wouldn't live with, and you're creating something that's temporary.
Yeah, and I guess kind of parallel.
Yeah.
I would like to explore, I guess, obviously so many prisoners have mental health issues,
Yeah.
whether that's before being like put in prison or as a result of being in prison. Could you foresee anything that could be done in prisons?
So the radio was very, very important. So back in the day, I don't know if you remember them, there used to be this leather-bound radio, a Roberts Rambler radio with a leather strap. They're now seen as being, you know, the cool thing. And it used to be powered by a PP9 battery, a big fat square battery. And that was the only radio or communication with the outside world that the prisoners had. So there was, if you think about the time, in the early days, personal stereos were still cassettes, and it wasn't as common, and there were expensive items. London Radio, LBC, all those sort of things. People like Tony Blackburn used to have an amazing radio show, and at nights, at the weekends, they'd have alternative music playing. So it was dance music, it was reggae, it was the early house music, and different people would be on these shows. Well, this was new. These guys were not getting access to this. The world was happening out there. It was pre-Kiss FM. It was, you know, Sunrise was on, but they could only have at the time an AM radio. They couldn't even get FM. So they really were limited to what they were hearing. So some of these radio stations become everything. So music was so important to them because it was the link with this is happening on the outside. So yeah, it's, you know, it played a massive part.
I've just realised something. You mentioned that popular radio. The next track, "The Funk" by Daft Punk. Just go on, take it away. Talk to me about it.
Makes me want to feel it quite emotional, actually. I went to a festival in a French town called Rennes, which is just Brittany area, and they had a music called Trans Music, and this must have been early 90s. And they were already 20 years old. Right. So the festival was already running for 20 years when we went there. And there was this band called Daft Punk. It must have been probably 94. But Daft Punk were a new band. It took me into French house, which I really love because it's French, which makes it sexy and groovy. I just love that whole feel that comes with that. And that track in particular. So I think the other one was The New Wave. Was their first track, and then Defunk. But for me, this was the track that really, as soon as it starts playing, everyone goes, "Oh yeah, I know that."
I mentioned the radio. Have you seen the music video to this? It's like a dog on a crutch.
Oh right.
It's like a guy with a dog mask on.
Yeah.
And he's got this radio.
Well, they never did an interview with their faces. So I think one of them had a hockey mask on, the other one had a big floppy dog ear, and they were interviewed. And they said, why did they wear the mask? And they said, we don't want to be known for our looks. We want to be known for our music.
Yeah, and that carried on throughout their careers.
They
moved on to the spacey helmet things. Yeah. Another thing I read about this song was I knew the tune before, but just had a bit of a read about it. It was inspired by "Regulate" by Warren G.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, I used to like that.
Yeah, it's a tune. This is "Defunk" by Daft Punk. That was "Defunk" by Daft Punk.
Yeah. How
did you find yourself out in France?
So there was a link with Different Drummer, which was a record label that I was involved with. And we had a group called Rockers Hi-Fi, and we were doing gigs. There was a guy who was the manager, Nigel Blunt, who in his madness was a genius. And I remember he had fitted this big ISDN line so he could send music down the pipe, as he called it, around the world. Because remember, this is dial-up internet days. So the only people that had ISDN lines were big corps. So record companies had them, universities had them, colleges had them. And so he then had one installed in their office in Birmingham because he was sending music down the pipe to lots of places around the world. So, it was digital music. So it was one of the first times you're getting to send music around the world digitally without it being in a little box and put it in the post. Anyway, so got picked up by some guys in France. They liked what we were doing and we liked what they were doing, and they said, oh, come and play at our club, and we played at the club. And then we had something called Different Drummer Sound System, which was just where any MC and DJ combination from the guys that were in the bands would go and play, and we'd play anywhere, and we'd mix it up with the genres and mix it up with the styles, but always just full on party.
So do you think the French festival was your favourite ever? Or
no, but it was great because it really opened up the whole eclectic thing. There was a festival that used to happen in Germany. I think the Germans also were absolutely ahead of the curve, really, with looking at different genres and crossing over genres in music. You look at people like Kraftwerk, what they were doing. Again, just talking about it makes me feel really emotional. It was tearing down barriers of the world.
In Berlin, quite physically?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember staying in a hotel looking out at the Berlin Wall. I mean, the first time I saw the Brandenburg Gate, it looked like a building site. It was smashed to pieces. We were playing in clubs in East Berlin that there was still the railway carriages left over, that the chances are people had been transported on. We were, going into places that people hadn't touched for 40 years, 50 years. Nobody had been there, rusty gates. And it was, East Berlin was just absolutely amazing. Tiergarten, you go through there, they're just like a big old house on the river, and every floor had a different genre of music being played, and everybody was just getting together.
You touched on something there about how, as well as the artists playing all this different music, the people who were experiencing it, welcoming of whatever it was. I personally feel there's so few spaces now where you can guarantee that the audience will just be open to anything regardless of what it is.
Unfortunately, we get caught into the I like this opposed to I like music. But people were open to something different. We're a product of our past. You know, kids would be listening to what their parents listened to and rejecting it, but then going back to it later. Or they'd be singing a song and their mom sings along with it and goes, "How do you know this, Mom? What was a remix from?" That I think, if we leave ourselves open to receive, we'll get far more out of it. I think it's quite sad when people go, "Oh, I don't listen to a particular genre of music," and I say, "Why is that? What is it that you don't like about it?" "I don't like the music." But then you see people like Beyonce tearing out Texas, you know, Little Nas, and all those sort of things, where he has to go to, you know, Billy Ray Cyrus just to get it released, and we're thinking, it's the 21st century, really?
On the space front, like one of the few spaces I've been to where you can like walk around, experience all like many different kinds of music, not all kinds of music, and the crowd will be quite receptive of it, is Glastonbury. Yeah. Especially in that little southeast corner. You've been to Glastonbury?
I have, yeah. It was the hottest one ever. I think it was like the 25th year or something like that. But we're all walking around in shorts. You couldn't sleep. It was that hot. It was great. And then I went again and it rained. And it was the time when they got the pump mixed up with the sewerage, and there was live sewerage everywhere. And I climbed, I got out, I stripped myself naked, put all my stuff in a bag, boots the lot, and threw it in the bin. It was just a mix of mud and human feces. It was just beyond.
Did you barefoot it?
I drove out of Glastonbury.
Okay.
I drove out first, stripped off, put it all in a black bin liner, and drove home and I just said, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking Glastonbury. I think it's an absolutely amazing festival. I think it's a great site. It's massive. It is massive. And I think everybody should experience it at least once in their life.
Yeah. The next song, we didn't quite touch on it then, but you've actually performed at Glastonbury, right?
Yes. Not with this band here.
Okay.
But it was with Bigger Bush, who is a music producer within his own right, and he does a lot of samba and batucada and various sounds. And he's really eclectic mixing in sounds, and a DJ as well. And I learnt so much from working with him. But he wanted to take out an album that he had made live, with live instruments. So he made it in the studio and played every single instrument on it. But then he said, I want to make a band and I want to tour. So I'd done a couple of tracks with him on that, and he said, will you come on tour with me? And we closed Glastonbury one year. I played on the Pyramid stage.
Amazing. Do you want to chat a little bit about Going Under? This is a separate project.
Yeah, I started working, doing security in clubs and stuff, and I started working in this club, Snobs, that used to have a night called What a Life. That became a track from a band called Rockers Hi-Fi. So they'd be playing, and it was proper house, you know, Lauren Garnier, Judge Jules, various different DJs, you know, Kinky Blinky, all those sort of DJs are playing in the big room. And in the side room, in the chill-out room, there was Jag Grizzly from a band called Electribe 101, and he was DJing, and he was playing the dirtiest dub music you can think of. But that was me. So I used to go, oh, I'm working there. And so he'd be playing it, and I'd be chatting away and toasting. And he said to DJ Dick, I think I might have found someone to voice over your samples. So I turned up in my prison officer's uniform after work one day in the studio, big baton and keys in my uniform, and he started playing some tracks. And that day I think we laid down probably 4 or 5 tracks, and this one was absolutely pouring down with rain. And there's a comedy duo called Reeves and Mortimer, and they used to do this thing, pick patter, little raindrops, and it was just a pee take. But there was something about it. It was the first time that I found an avenue to release all my thoughts. I'd written songs and poems for years as a child, and I used to write poems a lot. But this is the first time I actually wrote about what I was experiencing, what I saw. And it was, you know, I'm working in raves, I'm working in underground clubs like Wobble. I'm working at real cutting edge, avant-garde underground clubs in Birmingham. And I'm seeing an alternative life to the fluffy party.
Let's listen to it. This is Going Under by Rockers Hi-Fi. As soon as I heard it, I was like, you cheeky f***er, I know this voice. I know who this is. Right, I've jumped around a little bit.
What was through?
Left field.
Oh, right, okay. Well, we can lead it into this. Whether it matters, I don't know.
It doesn't.
Because
we do what we want.
When we went on tour, we went to see Left Field before I went on tour. And I'd love there's a place in Birmingham called The Institute. and it's the big old music hall space and everything else. And Left Field were playing 2 weeks before we went on tour, and Nigel Blunt said, let's go and watch them, because they're not doing a dissimilar thing to us. They're taking different genres of music and bringing it together on a stage, opposed to just either DJing or that. So I went to see Left Field live at the Institute, and I'll be honest, I was blown away. It took me to another level. It made me a bit insecure. Can I do that as well as that is? But I love the album anyway. The diversity of sounds and the mix of genres, and you got like burn Hollywood, burn, tear down Tinseltown. It's real punky and going, and then you've got Cheshire Cat, and you've got all these different people coming in, but it's all brought together in one place, and that's what we had been doing. And I think it was the first time that I visualised what it was that. Where we were going. It captured it for me live. I've seen them play that concert 3 or 4 times now, and each time it's like it's the first time I've seen it.
What amazes me with that album, I think it's called Song of Life, this like wobbly acid one. What I find amazing about it is like how like somewhat critically acclaimed they were in the mid-90s. I was reading about them. I used to be obsessed with the Mercury Award.
Okay.
Judge Away. When I was younger, like that's one of the ways I found music as a young person. And I remember looking back and seeing Left Field were nominated for it. And I think that might be how I found the album. But just the thought of an album like Leftism now being nominated for big gongs, it's just not really a thing, which I find sad.
Yeah, but everything has its time.
Yeah.
And it was that time. It was a reflection of what was happening.
Yeah.
People were coming from all different walks of life, all different genres, all different social classes, all different backgrounds, all coming together, and that mass cacophony is what was being delivered every weekend at somewhere, unknown venue or known venue, and that's what was happening. It was great. It was amazing. And so at the time, it basically put all of that out in a triple vinyl form, which I have, by the way. But yeah.
What, first press?
Absolutely.
Obsessed. We're going to play the next track,
Okay.
which is Release the Pressure by Left Field. We're going to move on to the last track.
Yeah.
This blew my mind.
What, as my choice or just the track?
Like the fact that you chose the Prince version as well. Talk about it. Go.
Okay, well, nothing compares to you, Sinead O'Connor, obviously, and Prince. Neither of them are with us anymore. When I worked at Wembley, I'd seen Prince, I think it was 14 or 15 times. Diamonds and Pearls, Love Sexy, all those sort of, various tours that there were. But he was such a showman. And then I didn't realise all the songs that he wrote for other people. And it wasn't until he started singing that I thought, of course he wrote it. Because even now, when Sinead O'Connor sings it, you still hear him. His delivery, his phraseology, all of that it's just so very Prince. I think he's just such a talented artist. It's a great track, but I think Sinead O'Connor absolutely smashes it out the park. And I think the video within itself is just a work of art. So I think all of it within itself, if you've got to pay homage to someone who's not here, she was a great artist, great delivery. He was a wonderful showman, great songwriter, great musician. And then I think that's probably the best song, one of his best songs ever. If you think of that, Nothing Compares to You, yes, it's a sad breakup song, but just that line, nothing compares to you. If you ever wanted to dedicate that to your wife, to your child, to your parent, it is so beautiful. It just says so much, because why are we comparing? But there's nothing that compares. As a sentence, when you think of it, I've got nothing I can compare to you, because you're beyond all of that. I just think it's a very, very beautiful, beautiful, beautiful piece of writing.
Play the track. Nothing compares to Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been an honour.
No.
An unexpected honour.
The pleasure is mine, Pat. I'll see you on site in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Let the festivities begin.
A huge thanks for tuning into FairPlay today. We hope you've enjoyed hearing tales from across the festival site.
Subscribe to the Fairs channel and follow our socials for more content.
See you next time.
Bye.